All right, buckle up, because we're about to take a deep dive into some, well, let's just say unconventional thinking.
Sounds intriguing.
Oh, it is, it is. We're talking about actor Terrence Howard. You know him, right?
Of course, but I had no idea he was into...
Well, he wrote a whole book called 1 × 1 = 2.
Okay, now that's a title that grabs your attention.
Right, and it doesn't disappoint, believe me. In this deep dive, we're going to unpack his main arguments.
I'm all ears.
See where they come from, and hey, maybe you'll walk away with a whole new perspective on things we usually take for granted.
Like basic math.
Exactly. It's like we learn these rules and never question them.
Right. You know, it's funny you say that, because one of the things that really struck me about Howard's story is how it all started back in 3rd grade.
Oh, yeah, with the square root of 2.
Yeah, the square root of 2. Imagine getting punished for being curious about math.
I know, right? It makes you think, how many times have we held back from asking a question because we were afraid of sounding silly?
Oh, countless times, I'm sure. But Howard's experience shows what can happen when you embrace that curiosity.
He turned it into a lifelong exploration. Okay, so let's get down to it. Why does Howard believe that 1 × 1 must equal 2?
Well, his argument hinges on multiplication being repeated addition. Like 2 times 2 is just 2 added twice.
Right, 3 × 3 is 3 added 3 times.
Exactly. So logically, 1 × 1 should be 1 added twice, which equals 2. Makes sense.
It does, but hold on. Isn't there that whole identity property thing in math? Any number times 1 is just itself.
You're absolutely right, and Howard acknowledges that. But he's saying there's something deeper at play here.
Like a cosmic rule of doubling.
Precisely. He sees this principle of doubling woven into the very fabric of how the universe operates.
And he uses some really concrete examples to make his case.
Oh, absolutely. Like how light doubles when you reflect it in a mirror, or how sound waves multiply their effects.
It's like he's saying these aren't just random occurrences, but evidence of a larger pattern.
Exactly. He sees it as this underlying principle of expansion and growth that permeates everything.
Interesting. And he even brings in the periodic table, right? Yeah. Comparing numbers to elements.
Yeah. Hydrogen, as the simplest element, is like the 1 in his model.
And everything else builds from there. It's a pretty bold claim, connecting basic math to the structure of the universe itself.
It is. And to further illustrate this idea of doubling as a fundamental principle, he brings in, of all things, fractals, specifically the Mandelbrot set.
The Mandelbrot set. For those of us who aren't math whizzes, what exactly is that?
Imagine a shape that gets infinitely more complex the closer you look at it, with all these repeating patterns.
Whoa, sounds trippy.
It is, and Howard uses it to show how this concept of doubling might be inherent to the very nature of reality. It's like zooming in on a snowflake and finding infinite detail.
So if this doubling principle is so fundamental, why do we all think 1 × 1 = 1? Where did we go wrong?
Well, according to Howard, you can blame it on the ancient Babylonians.
The Babylonians, yeah. Really?
Yeah, he traces the error, as he sees it, back to their number system, which was based on 60.
Interesting. So we're all just victims of bad math inherited from thousands of years ago.
Well, that's Howard's argument. It's important to remember, though, that Babylonian math was quite sophisticated for its time.
True, but math has obviously evolved a lot since then.
Oh, absolutely. We're constantly refining our understanding. And Howard's not just picking on the Babylonians. He also critiques those perfectly symmetrical 3D shapes, the Platonic solids.
I vaguely remember those from geometry class. Cubes, tetrahedrons, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And Howard basically says using them to describe the universe is like trying to draw the human body using stick figures.
Because the universe is way more fluid and dynamic than those rigid shapes.
Right. He envisions everything as constantly expanding and contracting, more like waves than static objects.
And this is where his model gets really visual, right? He talks about light waves, curving, space-time warping, and everything being interconnected through these spherical waveforms he calls Terran wave fields.
Yes. Imagine a network of interconnected spheres, each pulsing with energy. That's the essence of his model. It's definitely a different way of looking at things.
It is. But it's important to remember, this deep dive isn't about deciding whether Howard is right or wrong.
Exactly. It's about exploring his ideas and seeing how someone can challenge even the most basic assumptions we hold dear.
And those challenges can sometimes lead to some really fascinating discoveries and new ways of thinking.
Couldn't agree more. It's all about expanding our perspectives.
Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. Howard goes way beyond math, delving into money, common sense, and even quantum physics.
Oh yeah, things are about to get really interesting.
But we'll save that for the next part of this deep dive. Stay tuned.
Diving deeper into this, one thing that really struck me was Howard's point about approximations.
Oh, yeah, he's not a fan, is he?
No, not at all. Like he uses that great example with honeybees.
The waggle dance.
Yes. How they communicate where to find food.
Yeah.
He says their movements have to be incredibly precise.
Even a tiny error and the whole hive goes off course.
Exactly. He highlights this precision and contrasts it with how we often round numbers or accept margins of error.
Like, we've become okay with being close enough.
Yeah, and he argues those little inaccuracies, well, they add up. They
Yeah.
can really distort our understanding of things.
So how does this tie back to his whole 1 times 1 equals 2 thing?
Well, he sees our acceptance of irrational numbers, like this square root of 2, as part of this larger problem.
Instead of finding a true solution, we settle for an approximation.
Right. And he's saying that this close enough mentality, it might have seeped into other areas of our lives too.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Have we lost that drive for precision in other areas?
It's a good question to ponder. But Howard's book, it's not just about critiquing math. He goes way beyond that.
Oh yeah, he gets into some pretty mind-bending stuff. Quantum physics, consciousness, the whole shebang.
One of the things that really stood out to me was his challenge to this idea that the universe is just particles.
He says it's all fields, right? And those fields are conscious and interconnected.
That's a pretty big leap from 1 times 1 equals 2.
It is, but it's kind of cool to think about, isn't it? Like our thoughts and actions could be rippling out, affecting everything around us.
It does make you wonder about how much we still don't understand about reality. It reminds me of some of those mind-blowing ideas from quantum physics, like how observation itself can influence the outcome of an experiment.
Whoa, like we're all actively participating in creating reality.
Exactly. But Howard doesn't stop there. He delves into ancient myths and sacred geometry, talking about patterns like the flower of life. It's like he's searching for this deeper meaning.
A connection between ancient wisdom and modern science.
Right. He even suggests that those ancient symbols, they might represent some kind of universal language, a way of understanding how everything is interconnected.
Okay, so we've got math, physics, consciousness, ancient myths. He covers a lot of ground.
He's certainly not afraid to think outside the box.
But, one of the most radical ideas in the book, I think, is his take on zero.
Oh, you mean how he sees zero as a flaw in our thinking?
Yeah. It seems pretty basic, right? Zero just represents nothingness. But Howard argues that true nothingness doesn't exist.
He says even a vacuum is full of potential and energy.
Like there's always something there, even when we perceive emptiness.
It's almost like those optical illusions where you see one thing and then suddenly your brain flips it and you see something completely different.
Whoa, yeah. Like our perception of reality isn't always accurate.
Exactly. Howard's really challenging us to question what we think we know.
So we've covered math, physics, consciousness, ancient myths, even the concept of zero. Is there anything this guy doesn't tackle?
He seems to have a lot to say about everything. But, it's not really about whether he's right or wrong. It's more about the journey he takes us on.
And the questions he raises, right?
Exactly. He encourages us to think differently, to look beyond the surface, to explore new perspectives.
Speaking of exploring, there's one part where he gets really bold. He criticizes Einstein's theories of gravity.
Yeah, he argues that gravity isn't a force, but a property of space.
A different way of looking at it, that's for sure. But even Einstein's ideas have been debated over the years, haven't they?
They have. Science is a process of constant refinement. But it's interesting. Howard doesn't just critique. He actually offers his own model of the universe as an alternative.
He calls it the Terrence wave field model, right?
Right. And it's all about interconnectedness,
Right.
with everything linked through these spherical waveforms.
Very visual, very dynamic. But does it actually hold up scientifically?
Well, it lacks the kind of rigorous mathematical framework that you see in conventional physics.
So it's more of a philosophical concept than a hard scientific theory?
You could say that.
Yeah.
But it does offer this different lens through which to view the universe, and it raises some thought-provoking questions about reality and our place in it.
Which is what this deep dive is all about, right? Exploring different ideas, expanding our understanding of what might be possible. And Howard definitely gives us a lot to chew on.
He does. Whether you agree with him or not, you can't deny his passion and willingness to challenge conventional wisdom.
And that's something we can all learn from, I think. Don't be afraid to question things, even the stuff that seems set in stone.
Exactly. Embrace the mystery, explore different perspectives, and never stop learning.
Because who knows what incredible insights we might find when we dare to dig a little deeper.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, there's one more really interesting aspect of Howard's book that I want to discuss.
What's that?
It's how he connects these ideas about math and the universe to something that affects us all: money. And that's what we'll dive into in the final part of this deep dive. Okay, so we've gone pretty deep with Terrence Howard, challenging math, questioning Einstein, even diving into quantum physics and ancient myths. But he doesn't stop there. He brings it all back down to earth, connecting it to something we all deal with: money.
Yeah, that part really grabbed my attention. It's a pretty bold move to tie those abstract concepts to something as concrete as money.
Right. He basically argues that our current monetary system, fiat currency, it's inherently flawed because it's not really tied to anything tangible.
He compares it to how we can manipulate numbers, saying that fiat currency is kind of like virtual digital markers.
Representing nothing within the real world, he actually says that. Makes you think, what is money, really?
Exactly. He argues that this detachment makes it ripe for control and distortion, just like manipulating numbers.
It is kind of unsettling when you think about it. Our whole financial system is built on trust and perception, not something solid.
And that ties back to Howard's emphasis on common sense. He feels we've been trained to doubt our own intuition, accepting things even when they feel off.
Wake up, people. That's what it feels like he's saying. Don't just swallow what you're told.
He has a point. We're bombarded with so much info these days, it's tough to sift through it all. Critical thinking skills are more crucial than ever.
So, what's Howard's solution? Does he have a better system in mind?
He doesn't lay out a specific plan, but he pushes for a return to something grounded in real-world assets.
Like the gold standard, you mean?
Right. He thinks tying currency to a physical commodity would create more stability, prevent the kind of manipulation he sees with fiat currency.
Interesting. Whether you agree with his answer or not, he makes you think about money's role in society.
It all comes back to his main argument: re-examining the foundations of our world. Math, money, even our own common sense.
This deep dive into Terrence Howard's book has been a wild ride, that's for sure.
Absolutely. We've challenged basic assumptions, explored new theories, maybe even stretched our minds a bit.
One big takeaway, I think, is the power of curiosity. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if they seem out there.
Embrace the unknown. Consider new viewpoints. Never stop learning.
Who knows what we might discover when we dare to dive deep. Thanks for joining us on this journey, folks.